God bless America. Hello and happy Friday, everybody. I am the Talk Radio Protege. This is the Protege program. I am so very excited for the weekend. I hope that you are as well. I'm looking forward to unplugging from the news for a little while and kicking up my heels and relaxing. I wanted to talk today. It's been a little bit slower of a news cycle. So, Peter Strzok, the FBI agent that was, that more or less, if my understanding is correct, ran point on the Hillary investigation and on the Trump-Russia collusion investigation for the FBI. He appeared before a closed Senate committee hearing today, and allegedly he clammed up. He was, from what I've heard, extremely eager to tell his story until he appeared before the Senate Intelligence Committee, and then all of a sudden he couldn't manage to find his tongue. Maybe a cat had a hold of it or something, I don't know. But there's not much in terms of news in that department. Then there was a new revelation with the Annapolis paper shooting that happened late yesterday. Apparently the shooter had a long-standing grudge with the paper, and it wasn't politically motivated whatsoever. So something new, but not something that's going to cause a lot of discussion. We could talk about how the left overreacted to that. I think that they're prone to do so with any shooting of any kind. But in my opinion, that might feel a little stale. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to talk some more about Anthony Kennedy stepping down. Now, there's been a lot of speculation as to who's going to be tapped to be that nominee for the Supreme Court. And I think the president has an opportunity here to pick another Neil Gorsuch, or, as I've been hearing from some of the sources that I like to look at for news, he has an opportunity to pick another John Roberts. Now, that would be bad, because we all remember, I think, what John Roberts did as far as Obamacare goes. So Trump could knock another Supreme Court pitch out of the park, or he could flub and get thrown out. You know, just to play with a little bit of a baseball analogy there. But regardless of what Trump does, the left is losing their minds over the fact that Kennedy is stepping down from the Supreme Court. There have been profanity-laden epithets leveled at Mr. Kennedy. There have been, I've heard tell of tweets demanding that Justice Kennedy sit on that bench till you die, mother cusser. The left is not happy with Kennedy stepping down. I could not be. That's a lie. I could be happier. But I'm not going to miss Justice Kennedy. Being a swing vote on the Supreme Court is not a good thing. You need to be voting consistently in accordance with the Constitution. You need to be interpreting the Constitution according to the context under which the laws of the Constitution were written. Doing otherwise is rewriting the laws of the land. And that's what John Roberts did when he penned the opinion for the Obamacare case. It's what the liberal justices of the court do every time they get to pen an opinion for a case. I heard tell of a delicious excerpt of Justice Elena Kagan's dissent in the public sector labor union case, and I'm thinking about going and hunting that down. So we might be doing another Let's Read a Supreme Court Opinion video. I would like to hear from you guys. Let me know in the comments what you think about doing a video like that. I think that those are useful videos to do, but they're not always the best of reading. So let me know. Supreme Court opinion review reading of the public sector labor union case. That's on the table. Let me know if you guys want to hear that. But why? Why has the left been losing their minds over Kennedy stepping down? Well, Kennedy has, in his resume of cases that he's helped turn the court on, includes Roe v. Wade. And if you don't know what Roe v. Wade is, let me enlighten you. Please allow me to educate you. And I don't mean that in a condescending way. I mean that in a you have no idea what you've been missing out on. Roe v. Wade is the de facto federal legislation on abortion in the United States. The Congress has not passed any legislation on abortion. On the federal level, the Supreme Court has done it all in Roe v. Wade. And it's terrible court precedent. It would be bad legislation, but at least then it would be legislation. The Roe v. Wade is a bad Supreme Court decision, is bad legal precedent because of how ambiguous and vague that you must be when you are writing legislation from the bench, and that's what Roe v. Wade is. And now that Kennedy is going to be gone, and the only precedent that the left has for Trump picking someone for the Supreme Court is Neil Gorsuch. And I would imagine that scares the living snot out of these people. I would not be surprised to find out that Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi and all of the feminazis are having nightmares over what's going to happen to Roe v. Wade if Neil Gorsuch 2.0 gets put on the Supreme Court. But that is the long and short of why the left is losing their minds over Kennedy stepping down, because the left yearns for a revolution. Their voters have not for a long time. And as I've said, the next generation of voters yearns for the next generation of liberal Democrat voters, I should say, yearns for a socialist revolution. So Democrats are going to get a revolution, or revolutionary-minded people in their party if they would wait a little bit longer. But revolutionaries don't like to wait. It's why the next generation of Democrat voters is now picking open socialists in a point in American history where socialism is still not widely popular. They can't wait for the revolution, so they're voting in revolutionary representatives. Now, they've had the chance to vote in revolutionaries in the past, they just didn't know it because the revolutionaries of decades gone by were revolutionaries in hiding. So, revolutionaries don't want to have to sit around and wait for their revolution. So, Democrats have used the Supreme Court as a way to accelerate the revolution. They can't stand to wait around for legislative opportunities to make the revolution happen. They only come around once in a while. That doesn't make that's not even an English sentence. They only come around once in a blue moon. They don't come around often. You had chances like with Woodrow Wilson, like with FDR, like with Barack Obama, but the chance to accelerate the revolution doesn't come around often. And so the Democrats have sought to accelerate the revolution with the Supreme Court. That being said, you can probably understand why they would be so upset to be losing one of their votes on the Supreme Court. The left did not lose their mind when Scalia died and left a vacancy, as far as what's going to happen to the Supreme Court. For one, it was in Obama's tenure. For two, it was a conservative justice. They had the opportunity to replace a conservative justice with a revolutionary justice. They didn't get to do that thanks to Mitch McConnell and the Senate. By the way, I haven't got to talk about this, but Mitch McConnell has pledged to confirm President Trump's next Supreme Court nominee by the fall, before the midterm election. Basically taking it off of the election table, because for the out-of-power party, motivating things are very powerful. For the in power party, it's less of a big, it's less powerful, of course, because you're in power, you're winning at that point, and it's harder to motivate winners than it is to motivate the losers. The people winning than the people losing, rather. So it's kind of important to get this Supreme Court nominee out of the way because it is such a powerful motivator. Now, another reason that it's a powerful motivator is because it is a weapon, because it's been weaponized far beyond the original powers that the Supreme Court was supposed to have. And we've talked a little bit about that as part of the program as the days have gone on, and we'll talk about it more in the days to come. But the short version is, the founders, according to the Federalist Papers, did not intend for the Supreme Court to be the final arbiter of what was constitutional. The founders intended for the Supreme Court to have as limited as a power as the federal government did. So the Supreme Court was not supposed to be the all-powerful weapon that it is today. And that's another reason why the left is freaking out over Kennedy leaving the court. Have I already said? I'm kind of rambling. I didn't have much time today to put together a script for this video, but I've said most of what I wanted to say, and now I'm just thinking about whether there's anything else that I am desirous to say at this point. The short version is, the left is freaking out over Kennedy leaving the court because Republicans are in power. That's part A. Part 2 is the court is a weapon that they've been using to accelerate the revolution. Part 3 is when you give this much power to an institution, you give that much power to your opponents whenever they ultimately come into power in that institution, because it's going to swing that way eventually. So long as we have a democracy, a republic rather, things are going to swing back and forth between the parties in power. Someday, the left will be in a position to turn over the persuasion of the Supreme Court, and conservatives will lament this reality. But for right now, the left is freaking out. Oh, I wanted to talk about McConnell and the confirmation of Supreme Court justices. So, what happened in 2016? Justice Scalia passed away. There was a vacancy in the court, and it is the constitutional responsibility of the president to nominate justices to the court. It is the constitutional responsibility of the Senate to hold hearings, to vet those nominees, and to approve the ones that will faithfully uphold the Constitution. As in that sense, Congress fails whenever they confirm a justice to the Supreme Court that is not going to faithfully interpret and uphold the Constitution, i.e. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Samuel Alito, Elena Kagan, Sonia Sotomayor. The Congress does not fail in their duty if they say, we don't want to approve your nominee. Whether they don't even hold a hearing or not, they don't have to do that. They can just say, we're not going to confirm this nominee. We don't need a hearing to decide this, so we're not going to hold a hearing. Now, Obama had an option at that point. He could have said, okay, I won't nominate Merrick Garland. I'll nominate someone else. I'll nominate this candidate. Will you hold a hearing for this candidate? And then Mitch McConnell could have said, okay, yeah, this candidate is more acceptable. We'll hold a hearing for this candidate. Or he could have not said that. What Mitch McConnell set himself up for was to be accused of hypocrisy. If Mitch McConnell had said, we're not going to hold a confirmation hearing for anybody that Obama nominates because we think that a Republican is going to be the next president and we don't want to hold a confirmation hearing. It's entirely political. At least then he couldn't be accused of hypocrisy this time around, where people are saying, look, McConnell, it's an election cycle. The last election cycle, you said we couldn't hold these confirmation hearings. Now, to be fair, McConnell said it's a presidential election cycle. It's a little bit bigger of a deal, and it's a little bit bigger of an opportunity for the American people to have their voices heard, and we want them to have their voices heard. That's what he said. What he's being accused of is being political. And it's a little bit fair because he used a rationale like that he did to put off the confirmation. If he had just came out and said, look, it's political, we're not going to hold these confirmation hearings because we're in power and we don't like Obama's pick, so we're not going to hold the hearing. It puts off the risk of some of our senators going off the reservation and confirming a nominee that we don't want to have in. So we're not going to have the confirmation hearing. That would have been, people couldn't have said, well, you're saying one thing now and a different thing in the past. Because then Mitch McConnell would say, today, look, our guy is in office. We want to confirm his appointees because we think he's going to make good picks. So we're going to have a confirmation hearing. And people would be able to look at that and say it was political then, it's political now. Fine, there's no hypocrisy. But instead, McConnell has opened himself up to these accusations. In my opinion, I think it's fine if the Senate doesn't want to have a confirmation hearing. If the Democrats win in this year, and then 2020 rolls around, and Trump has the opportunity to nominate a new Supreme Court justice. If the Democrats want to say, look, it's an election year, we don't want to have this hearing, then I'm going to say, all right, but remember that the next time your president is in office during an election year and he wants to nominate a Supreme Court justice. But if the Democrats say, look, it's political, we think our guy's going to be in next term and we want to nominate our own guy, then I'll say, fine, that's the rules that I want to play by. I don't see why they shouldn't play by the same rules. Besides, it's constitutional. It's a responsibility. It's not an obligation. It's a duty. It's not an obligation. There's a little bit of a difference there. But let me know what you guys think. Leave your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you want to see more content like it, hit subscribe and hit the bell for notifications so that you don't miss a single video. But you got to make sure that you're checking back every weekday because you never know what shenanigans are going on over at YouTube. Again, thank you so much for watching. Have a great weekend. Go out there, unplug, and relax. Until next time, good night, have a great weekend, and God bless.